Hi, welcome to another devlog for AAA Simulator. Since I'm still in the prototyping stages, I thought I'd show you the kind of research I'm doing, starting with Theme Hospital. If you don't know, Theme Hospital is a 1997 quote-unquote business management sim made by Bullfrog Studios. It was their last game before being bought by EA, but if it looks familiar, that's because 2 Point Hospital is the spiritual successor. You can tell by the equally confusing name. The name actually comes from their previous title, Theme Park, which makes a little more sense and gives you a hint at what kind of game this is. It's in the category of tycoon games where the core mechanic focuses on sandbox play. The management part of these games is in the way you, the player, customize your business by building rooms and decorating them with items that give you some kind of advantage, but come at a cost. The name Business Management Sim might imply that you're going to be working with graphs and spreadsheets, but most of your interactions with money in these games is about buying as many cool things as you can without running out of cash. There are quite a few games with the same gameplay loop, like Roller Coaster Tycoon, Zoo Tycoon, and even The Sims. This is probably the most fundamental difference between AAA Simulator and Theme Hospital. My loop won't be focused on customization for a few reasons. First is that making a lot of cool items to decorate your AAA studio might sound like a lot of fun, but it means creating a lot of unique assets. I don't have the time or art skills for that. Second, making customizable rooms is likewise beyond my coding skill. It's a grid-based system, so I'm sure I could figure it out, but I have other concepts to learn that are more important. I will need to figure out something for the background of the game because I don't want it to be all menus, but I think a rendering of a AAA office will do with procedurally color-swapped little employees in low detail. The third reason is that I'm going for a very specific satirization of the AAA game industry. Theme Hospital is a comedy game too, but the sandbox playstyle lends itself to a very different kind of comedy. Theme Hospital is all about deciding how much space to devote to a room to cure a bloaty head by popping it and inflating it back to normal size, or failing to hire enough handymen to clean up vomit and having to deal with a vomit wave. Sandbox play also lends itself to humor that isn't scripted, but emerges from the mechanics themselves. The perfect example of this in Theme Hospital is the fact that the game encourages you to put indoor windows on every room you build. This naturally leads to building medical rooms that violate HIPAA, since anyone can look inside at any time, and bathrooms where every inch of the wall is covered in windows. PP and puke are funny, and this game knows it. So AAA Simulator needs a different kind of core gameplay loop. I mentioned that loop in the last video, but I'd like to explain it a little more. Instead of customization, AAA Simulator will be based around events like news about your company, demands from your shareholders, and opportunities to add features or otherwise modify your operations. The core mechanic of the game is responding to these events by hiring or firing people, which is an intentionally binary choice. You have to choose one and deal with the consequences, which you have to predict based on context. It's a similar core mechanic to the Reign series or the board game The King's Dilemma. Just like in those games, your choices also add to a pool of other possible events to continue that storyline. Your consequences could impact the game all the way until the very end. Your choices can easily become your downfall. I didn't get this idea from Reigns though. I've been playing with it in the form of prototypes and concepts for other games for quite a while, and I think this is a good way to make it happen. This core loop allows me to mock the real-world follies of AAA studios in the form of events while keeping the focus on the shareholders. Your choices may not be liked by your fans or your employees. They might not even be the best business decisions. But as long as they satisfy the shareholders, you get to keep being CEO for another day. So that's the first difference between AAA Simulator and Theme Hospital. And it's a huge one because it massively influences player behavior. But that's exactly why I chose to do it. There are a lot of similarities too, though. To simplify the core loop of Theme Hospital, patients walk in the door, they see a doctor for diagnosis, move to another room for a cure, and pay. This is actually a common loop in tycoon games too. In Zoo Tycoon, customers walk through the gates and pay, and although they aren't seeing doctors for a cure, they are seeing different attractions and exhibits. In both games, the more satisfied the customer, the better your reputation and the more customers will come. In my prototype now, I have a similar cycle. Although satisfying shareholders is all about posting ever-increasing profits each quarter, the time increment for profits can't, or shouldn't, be calculated quarterly. Instead, we have to imagine that every day a certain number of people will buy the company's previous games, and it'll be a different number every day based on marketing, how customers see the company and the game, and random things like the weather or what they ate that day. So how do we even calculate this? The method I've reverse engineered from Theme Hospital and other Tycoon games goes like this. We have a maximum pool of customers each day. A certain percentage of those will buy the game because of marketing and hype, so we multiply it by a hype modifier that goes from 0 to 100%. In Theme Hospital, the equivalent to this is, I believe, reputation. The more patients you cure instead of kill, and the more comfortable people are in your hospital, the more reputation you'll get. And according to all the information I could find, including this really cool magazine and manual from the 90s, reputation influences the number of customers you have. I think time will also have a big factor in hype. Not only because sales will always drop off after an initial peak, but the longer a game has been in development, the more likely it is to fail. We need only look at the 8 years it took to make Concord flop, as I mentioned in my last video, or the 14 years it took to make Duke Nukem Forever so, cool. So I haven't quite worked out the math yet, but the time to release will modify either hype or sales directly. A certain percentage of the remaining pool of customers won't buy the game because they went to the dentist or whatever that day, so we use a randomness multiplier. But we're not done yet. I think there's something that reviews and hype and marketing just can't account for, which is a blind spot for, let's just say, the vast majority of companies in our current system, and that's quality. I have a very simple theory that goes something like this. Happy artisans make quality products. I debated whether to use the word artisans or experts or workers, but in any case, the idea is the same. I know firsthand from being in the game industry that unhappy artists will quickly push a game into a death spiral. I want to make a secret stat for this. Let's just call it satisfaction, which silently has feedback loops with things like the production time and hype, but most importantly with sales. So we add on our satisfaction modifier and we have the sales for that day. We calculate this every day, and money steadily ticks up just like in Theme Hospital or Roller Coaster Tycoon, or my childhood favorite, Dino Park Tycoon. So there are some similarities and some differences, but so far Theme Hospital has helped me solidify a narrative system and a sales system. That's quite a lot, but I also wanted to look at some graphs. I remember Tycoon games often showing a quarterly or yearly report and including graphs at least somewhere. Theme Hospital has some graphs too, but they're not amazingly useful. They're all overlapping on the same chart, with each one making up their own y-axis scale as they go. For Theme Hospital, the biggest point is money in and money out. That equals your total cash, simple as that. There isn't even a line to combine the two into a profit calculation. It's not important as long as your cash on hand stays positive. I definitely need a different approach. If AAA Simulator is all about pleasing shareholders, then the feedback to the player should be all about the one thing they care about, perceived valuation. It's really not as complicated as you might think. If investors think your company is worth more than its stock price, they'll buy. If they think it's worth less than your stock price, they'll sell. So I need a graph that focuses on value. In fact, I recently finished a prototype of a graph that shows your predicted profit and the actual profit calculated from the sales loop I just covered. It changes color if you're predicted to piss off shareholders, or if your actual profits last month pissed them off. This is already a lot more feedback on the finances than Theme Hospital. But I plan to make it much more juicy, to really give solid feedback to the player in the form of poppy dopamine hits. Anyway, I think that's enough for one video, so I'll leave it there. I just wanted to show you the results of my design research for Theme Hospital, and point out that I took inspiration from systems that I both will and will not use. I'll use a similar sales loop, but I'll differ when it comes to narrative and player feedback. So that's how I've been approaching design research. I've never made a game economy that dealt with actual finances before, but a little reverse engineering and breaking it down into individual stats has made things a little easier for me. But I'm not saying this is the definitive way to approach it. If you're a developer watching this, feel free to leave a comment about your research and design methods. I'd be really interested to see it. Anyway, my next steps are to finish all the code for these systems and tune them for a nice learning curve. Although, I might also work on UI prototyping more between now and then. So stay tuned for both of those things. And thanks for watching.